Myra lived in a quiet street where most houses looked the same. White fences, trimmed grass, and small gardens gave the neighborhood a peaceful look. She liked it this way. Her life was simple: wake up early, go to work, come home, and enjoy a quiet evening. She didn't like surprises. But one evening, something small disturbed her peace. The garage light stopped working. It had been flickering for a few days, and now it refused to turn on at all. The light was important because her driveway stayed very dark at night. Without it, she felt uneasy whenever she came home late. Myra was not good with tools. She tried changing the bulb, but nothing happened. She sighed and looked at the phone book on her counter. There were many numbers for electricians and repairmen. She picked one at random and made the call. The next afternoon, a van stopped in front of her house. A tall man stepped out, carrying a toolbox. His name was Daniel. He was quiet, calm, and looked like someone who knew what he was doing. His skin was dark, and his hands looked strong from years of work. Myra greeted him at the door. "Thanks for coming. The garage light doesn't work. I tried to fix it, but," she laughed softly, "I'm useless with wires." Daniel gave a small smile. "No problem. I'll take a look." He walked to the garage with steady steps. Myra followed behind, watching as he set down his box and pulled out tools. He didn't talk much, but his presence was calm, almost comforting. Myra leaned on the doorway as Daniel worked. His movements were careful, precise. He checked the wires, tested the switch, and unscrewed the fixture. Myra found herself studying him more than the light. There was something about the way he focused, like the world around him didn't exist when he was fixing something. "You're very serious," she said, smiling. Daniel looked up, just for a second. His eyes were sharp, almost too sharp, but then he gave another small smile. "Just doing the job right." Myra chuckled. She wasn't sure why she said it, but the words slipped out before she could stop them. "You're handsome, you know that." For a moment, Daniel froze. His hand held a wire, and his eyes met hers. Myra felt her face grow warm. She hadn't meant to say it out loud. It just happened. But Daniel only smiled again, this time softer. "Thank you." Then he returned to his work as if nothing unusual had been said. Myra stood there, embarrassed and curious at the same time. She had called him handsome because it was true, but she also felt there was something more. Something behind his steady eyes, something he wasn't saying. The garage was quiet except for the sound of tools. Daniel worked carefully, checking the old wiring. "Strange," he muttered, almost to himself. "What's strange?" Myra asked. He didn't answer right away. He pulled out another tool, pressed it against the wires, and frowned. "The line is giving off more current than it should," he finally said. "That's not normal." Myra blinked. "Does that mean it's dangerous?" "Not dangerous," Daniel said. "Just unusual. I've seen it before, in certain places." He paused, then added, "Not in houses like this." Myra tilted her head. "What do you mean?" But Daniel didn't explain. He kept working, and after a while, the new bulb lit up. The garage filled with warm light again. Myra clapped her hands, smiling. "Finally. I was starting to think my house hated me." Daniel gave a small laugh, though his eyes stayed thoughtful. He cleaned his tools, but his gaze lingered on the glowing bulb. It wasn't the look of a man satisfied with a job done. It was the look of someone still thinking. Myra noticed it. "Something wrong?" Daniel hesitated. "No. It's fine now." But the way he said it didn't convince her. They walked out of the garage together. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Myra stood by the driveway as Daniel closed his toolbox. She wanted to ask him more questions, but she wasn't sure what to say. She had the strange feeling that fixing the garage light was not as simple as it seemed. Daniel glanced at the sky as if searching for something. His calm face showed no fear, but there was weight in his eyes. Myra felt it. "Well," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "Thanks again. You really saved me from a lot of frustration." Daniel nodded. "That's my job." He gave her a polite smile and turned toward his van. Myra watched him leave, but her mind stayed restless. She replayed his words: "Not normal, unusual, I've seen it before." What had he meant? Why had he looked at the light like it was more than just a broken fixture? That night, Myra stood in her driveway, staring at the garage light. It shone steadily now, bright and clear. But as she watched, she thought she saw it flicker just for a moment, almost like a heartbeat. Her chest tightened. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was imagining things. But a quiet voice in her mind whispered, "Something isn't right." Far away, down the street, Daniel sat in his van, parked under a tree. He wasn't driving home yet. His toolbox lay closed beside him, but his eyes stayed on a small device in his hand. The screen glowed faintly, showing strange numbers and signals. The numbers matched the light he had just fixed. Daniel sighed and leaned back in his seat. "So it begins," he murmured. Myra, unaware of the truth, turned off her house lights and went to bed. She thought her life was ordinary again. She thought tomorrow would be the same as always. But above the quiet neighborhood, the sky shimmered faintly with moving stars. And one of them was not a star at all. The next morning, Myra made coffee and tried to forget about the odd feeling from last night. The garage light was fixed, and that should have been the end of it. But when she poured her coffee and sat by the window, she found herself staring at the garage again. The bulb glowed faintly in the early light. It wasn't on, but there was a strange shimmer around it, as if the glass caught more of the sun than it should. Myra shook her head. "You're imagining things," she told herself. She wanted to laugh about what she had said yesterday. "You're handsome, you know that." The words still made her cheeks warm. Daniel had been kind about it, but she wished she hadn't blurted it out. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about his strange comment, "Not normal. I've seen it before." By afternoon, she returned from work. The sky was gray, and the wind was picking up. Myra parked her car and walked toward the house. That was when she noticed Daniel again. His van was parked down the street, half hidden under a large oak tree. Myra frowned. Why was he here again? She walked quickly to her house and put her things inside. Then curiosity won over. She stepped out and walked toward the van. Daniel looked up as she approached. His face was calm, but she could see the same sharp look in his eyes. "Daniel," she asked. "Why are you here?" He closed the small device in his hand. "Just checking something." "Checking what?" For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he said, "The light." Myra crossed her arms. "The garage light? I thought it was fixed." "It is," he said. "But it's active." "Active?" She tilted her head. "It's just a bulb." Daniel sighed, then opened the van door and motioned for her to come closer. Inside, she saw equipment she didn't recognize: screens, wires, strange meters that beeped softly. One screen showed a pulsing signal. It blinked in rhythm, steady like a heartbeat. "That's your light," Daniel said quietly. Myra stared. "What do you mean? Why would a light do that?" He looked at her seriously. "Because it's not just a light. Something was hidden inside the fixture. Something that doesn't belong in a normal house." Myra felt a chill run down her arms. "Hidden? By who?" Daniel shook his head. I don't know yet. But I've seen this before. It's a beacon. A kind of signal device. Myra laughed nervously. A beacon? Like a radio. More advanced, Daniel said. It sends signals into the sky. Myra blinked at him. You can't be serious. But Daniel didn't smile. His face stayed calm, steady, like he had said this kind of thing before. They sat in silence for a moment. The wind outside picked up, and the tree branches tapped against the van roof. Myra suddenly felt very small, like her safe little world was cracking open. Finally, she said, if it's a beacon, then, who is it calling? Daniel's gaze drifted toward the sky. That's the part I was afraid of. That night, Myra couldn't sleep. Every sound made her heart jump. She kept looking through her window at the garage light. It glowed steadily, but she swore it flickered once or twice, as if winking at her. She tried to distract herself with a book, but her mind kept circling back to Daniel's words. A beacon. A signal. Calling someone. Around midnight, she finally stepped outside. The air was cool, and the street was silent. She stood by the driveway and stared at the light. The bulb buzzed faintly, like a whisper she couldn't understand. Then it happened. The bulb flared suddenly, much brighter than before. A pulse of white light spread across the yard, making Myra shield her eyes. For a moment, everything around her seemed to vibrate: the air, the ground, even her chest. Then it faded. Myra's knees felt weak. She stumbled back, gasping. What was that? From the shadows, a calm voice answered, you weren't supposed to see this. She turned quickly. Daniel stepped out from the dark side of the street. He carried the same device from before, its screen glowing with wild signals. Daniel, she cried. What's happening? He walked to her slowly, his expression serious. The beacon just activated. That pulse, it wasn't random. It was a message. A message to who? Myra asked, her voice trembling. Daniel looked up at the night sky. His eyes narrowed. To someone far away. And now they know where to look. Myra's stomach twisted. She followed his gaze. The sky was clear, filled with stars. Nothing seemed unusual. But she could feel the uneasy weight in the air, as if something invisible had changed. Daniel lowered his device. Listen to me, Myra. You need to stay calm. I'll handle this. She shook her head. Handle what? You're talking like aliens are going to land in my backyard. Daniel didn't answer. He just kept looking at the stars, his jaw tight. Myra grabbed his arm. Tell me the truth. Finally, Daniel looked at her. There are things out there watching us. Most people don't know. Most people don't need to know. But sometimes, their machines slip through. Sometimes, they hide them where no one expects. And they hid one in my garage, she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. Yes. And now it's awake. The silence between them was heavy. Myra felt her world tilting. This was supposed to be a normal life, in a quiet neighborhood. A broken light, a handyman, a small problem. But now, she stood under a sky that felt far too close, with a stranger telling her the stars were watching. A low humming sound drifted through the air. Myra froze. Daniel lifted his head sharply. The sound grew louder, like the distant thrum of engines. Myra's heart pounded. What is that? Daniel's eyes stayed on the sky. Visitors. Myra followed his gaze. Far above, one star flickered. Then another. Slowly, the lights began to move, gliding across the dark like glowing fish in a deep sea. Her breath caught. That's not a plane, is it? No, Daniel said firmly. His hand gripped his device tightly. They're here because of the beacon. And they'll be here soon. The garage light pulsed again, as if answering the movement in the sky. Myra felt the ground shake faintly beneath her feet. Daniel stepped in front of her, steady as stone. His calm voice cut through her fear. Stay behind me. Humans are not as weak as they think. The sky above Myra's house was no longer calm. The moving lights grew brighter, shifting slowly in patterns that made her stomach twist. They weren't stars. They weren't planes. Something alive or something built by a mind she could not imagine was moving in the darkness. Myra stood frozen on her driveway, her heart racing. Daniel stayed steady in front of her, holding his device like a soldier ready for battle. His calmness was strange, almost unreal. Finally, Myra whispered, Daniel, who are you really? He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the sky, watching the strange lights. Not who you think, he said softly. I came here as a handyman, but that's only half true. My real job is different. Myra frowned. Different how? Daniel lowered the device, turning to face her. His voice was quiet but firm. I'm part of a group. We keep watch over Earth. We guard it from threats most people don't even know exist. Myra's lips parted. Guard it? From them. She pointed at the sky. Daniel nodded once. Yes. Her mind spun. She wanted to laugh, to tell him this was impossible, but the lights above didn't let her. They were real. She could see them with her own eyes. Daniel stepped closer. The beacon in your garage was hidden a long time ago. It was placed to send signals, maybe to test if humans would notice, maybe to call back those who planted it. When I fixed your light, I felt something strange in the wires. I knew then it wasn't just broken. Myra remembered the way he had stared at the bulb yesterday, the way his eyes had been too serious for something so small. And now it's active. Yes. She shivered. Why my house? Daniel shook his head. It could have been any house, any street. They don't care where they hide their things. To them, humans are blind. They thought no one would ever notice. His gaze hardened. But they were wrong. The humming in the sky grew louder. Myra felt it in her chest, a deep vibration like a drum beat. Her legs trembled, but Daniel's calm voice steadied her. Listen carefully, he said. They might send a scout. If that happens, do not run. Do not speak. Let me handle it. Myra's throat went dry. Handle it? Daniel, this is insane. You're just... She stopped herself. No, he wasn't just a handyman. She knew that now. Daniel adjusted the device in his hands. It unfolded like a tool, but the inside glowed with faint blue lines, too advanced for anything she had ever seen. I've trained for this, he said. Trust me. The sound above them deepened. Myra looked up and gasped. One of the lights was moving lower. Slowly, carefully, as if it were searching. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a car, but it glowed with a strange silver light that shifted like water. It descended toward the street, silent except for that low hum. Myra's breath caught in her throat. Her neighbors' houses stayed dark, as if the world had fallen asleep, leaving her and Daniel alone to witness this impossible sight. The craft hovered just above the road. No wings, no wheels, no engines she could see. It floated as if gravity didn't matter. Myra whispered, "Oh my." Daniel raised his tool, his eyes sharp. "Stay behind me." The craft turned, its surface rippling like liquid metal. A beam of pale light shone from its front, sweeping across the street. When it touched Myra's garage, the bulb flickered violently, answering the call. Myra covered her mouth. "It's looking for the beacon." Daniel nodded. "Exactly." The beam shifted again, and for a terrifying second, It landed on Myra. She froze like a deer in headlights. The air felt heavy, pressing down on her chest. Daniel stepped in front of her, raising his device high. A sharp blue glow pulsed from it, cutting through the pale light. The craft's beam wavered, then recoiled like it had been burned. The hum from above turned sharper, almost angry. The craft rotated in the air, focusing on Daniel now. "Daniel!" Myra cried. "What are you doing?" His jaw clenched. "Showing them we're not blind." The device in his hand crackled, and with a flick of his wrist, it released a pulse of its own. A wave of energy shot upward, invisible at first but strong enough to shake the leaves on the trees. The craft jerked back, its glow dimming. Myra's eyes widened. You hit it?" Daniel didn't answer. He kept his stance, ready to strike again. The craft hovered unsteadily, as if confused. Then, without warning, it shot straight upward into the night, vanishing in seconds. The street grew silent again. The hum was gone. The garage light flickered once more, then steadied. Myra collapsed to her knees, her heart pounding. What just happened? Daniel lowered his device and exhaled slowly. That was a scout. They wanted to confirm the beacon signal. Myra looked at him with wide eyes. And you fought it off, with that? He finally glanced at her, his face unreadable. It's human technology. Advanced, yes, but human. Don't let anyone tell you we can't stand against them. Myra swallowed hard. How many more are there? Daniel looked back at the sky. The stars above were calm again, but his expression stayed grim. Many. Scouts mean something larger is watching. They'll decide what to do next. Myra's voice shook. So, we're in danger. We always were, Daniel said quietly. But most people never see it. The words chilled her, but there was also something else, something fierce. Pride. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't running. He was standing firm in the face of something unimaginable. Myra rose to her feet slowly. Her legs were weak, but she looked at him with new eyes. You're not just a handyman. You're what? A soldier. Daniel shook his head. Not a soldier. A guardian. My duty is to protect, to watch, to act only when needed. Tonight was one of those times. Myra's breath caught. And now? What happens now? Daniel glanced at her garage, then at the sky. His voice was calm but heavy. Now, they know Earth isn't as helpless as they thought. And that will change everything. That night, Myra couldn't sleep again. She sat by her window, staring at the garage light, half afraid it would flicker, half waiting for it to. Her world had changed forever. And outside, in the silence of the street, Daniel remained in his van, watching the stars with patient eyes. He knew the fight was far from over. The next evening, Myra tried to keep herself busy, but her mind refused to rest. Every creak of the house made her think of the strange craft. Every flicker of the garage light made her stomach tighten. She told herself to stop worrying, but the memory of the glowing ship, the heavy hum in the air, and Daniel's calm words were still too fresh. Her quiet life was gone. Now the stars felt alive, like eyes staring down from the dark. By 9 o'clock, she finally gave in. She walked to the window and peeked outside. Daniel's van was still parked down the street. He hadn't left since the night before. Part of her wanted to feel annoyed, but instead, she felt oddly comforted knowing he was still there. After a while, she stepped outside, pulling her jacket tight against the cool air. The garage light burned steadily, but tonight it looked brighter, like a watchful lantern. She crossed her arms, staring at it. Footsteps approached. She didn't have to look to know it was Daniel. His calm voice reached her first. You shouldn't be out here alone. Myra turned. And you shouldn't still be here, but you are. He gave a small nod. Because it isn't over. Her throat went dry. Are they coming back? Daniel looked at the sky, where stars glittered faintly. Scouts never work alone. If one came, others were close by. And when a scout returns with data, it means larger ships will follow. Myra hugged her arms. How soon? Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. His tone was steady, but Myra could see the tension in his eyes. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Myra whispered, Why don't you tell people? The government, the news, somebody. Daniel shook his head. They wouldn't believe it. Or worse, they would panic. And panic helps them more than us. Before Myra could respond, the air shifted. A low vibration rolled across the street, faint but steady. She froze. Daniel, is that? He raised a hand. Yes. They're here. The vibration grew, turning into a hum, then into a distant roar. Myra's heart raced as she looked up. At first, she thought it was a cloud, but clouds didn't move like that. A shadow slid across the stars, blotting them out. Her mouth went dry. That's huge, Daniel's jaw tightened. A cruiser. The shape drifted overhead, massive and silent, its dark body glowing faintly with silver lines. It looked like a floating city, too large to believe. Myra gripped the edge of her driveway for balance. Then, without warning, a smaller craft dropped from the cruiser. It streaked downward like a falling star, slowing as it neared the ground. The same hum filled the air, stronger this time. Myra covered her ears. The craft hovered over the neighborhood. A beam of light swept across the houses. Windows rattled, and Myra swore the ground trembled. Daniel pulled a small object from his pocket and tapped it. A shield-like glow flickered around him and Myra, invisible until the beam touched it. When the light passed over them, the glow shimmered, blocking the scan. Myra gasped. What is that? Protection, Daniel said simply. His eyes stayed locked on the craft. The beam moved on, sweeping across the street, pausing again when it touched Myra's garage. The bulb flickered, answering the call like before. They know it's here, Myra whispered. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. Then we give them a message. He raised his device, the one he had used against the scout. The blue lines along its surface glowed brighter than before. He pressed a switch, and a pulse of energy shot upward. The small craft jolted, its light beam scattering. It wobbled in the air, then pulled back. Above, the massive cruiser shifted, as if reacting to the strike. Myra's chest tightened. Daniel, what are you doing? Won't that make them angry? They're already angry, he replied. But now they know we can see them. The smaller craft hovered higher, regrouping. It didn't attack again, but it didn't leave either. Instead, it circled slowly, like a predator studying its prey. The cruiser above loomed larger, its faint glow pulsing in rhythm with the garage light. Myra grabbed Daniel's arm. It's like they're talking to each other. Daniel nodded. The beacon is calling them, but it's also betraying them. By answering, they reveal their signal to me. You mean, you can trace them? Yes. His eyes gleamed. That's how humans fight back. Not with strength, but with cleverness. Myra looked at him, her fear mixing with awe. He wasn't just defending. He was learning, adapting. The hum in the air faded a little. The smaller craft pulled back, rising toward the cruiser. Slowly, the shadow above began to drift away, retreating into the night sky. Myra let out a shaky breath. They're leaving. For now, Daniel said. He lowered his device, but his posture stayed tense. They came to test. They'll return when they're ready for more. Myra swallowed hard. And what do we do until then? Daniel glanced at her garage, then back at the van parked down the street. We prepare. Later that night, Myra sat inside her living room, hugging a blanket around her shoulders. The house felt too quiet. She kept glancing at the window, half expecting another beam of light to sweep through. Daniel sat across from her. He had brought in a small case from his van, filled with tools and devices she didn't recognize. Strange symbols glowed faintly on them, but Myra could tell they were human-made. "Do you carry these everywhere?" she asked softly. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Always." She studied him for a moment. "How long have you been doing this?" "Watching the sky." He paused before answering. "Years. Since I was young. My family, they understood that Earth isn't alone. They taught me to see what others ignore." Myra's eyes softened. "That sounds lonely." "Sometimes," he admitted. "But it's worth it. Because humans deserve the chance to stand free." His words sent a quiet strength through her. She had always thought of Earth as small, fragile compared to the vast universe. But the way Daniel spoke made it sound like humans were not weak, they were determined, stubborn, and clever. Myra looked down at her hands. "I never imagined my garage light would start all this." Daniel's calm eyes met hers. "Sometimes the smallest places hold the biggest secrets." The garage bulb flickered faintly, as if agreeing with him. Outside, the night grew still again, but Myra knew the calm wouldn't last. Somewhere in the dark, alien eyes had seen her house, her street, her world. And somewhere out there, ships larger than cities waited. But she also knew something else. She wasn't alone anymore. Daniel was here. And behind his steady eyes was the quiet promise that humanity would not kneel. The morning sun came through the curtains of Mary's small living room. She sat at the table with a warm cup of tea in her hands. The steam floated upward, but her mind was not on the tea. It was on Daniel. She thought about his kind smile, the way he never made her feel judged, and how his voice carried a calm strength. She had lived many years, seen many people come and go, but somehow, Daniel felt different. For the first time in a long while, Mary felt a spark of hope. She didn't know what it meant yet, but it made her heart feel alive. Just then, there was a gentle knock on the door. Mary set down her cup quickly and opened it. Daniel stood there, holding a small box of tools. He smiled warmly. "Good morning, Mary," he said. "I thought I'd check if everything is working fine now." Mary's face brightened. "Good morning, Daniel. Yes, the light works perfectly. But you didn't have to come so early." He shrugged softly. "I don't mind. I like making sure things are right. Besides, I enjoy the walk over here." Mary stepped aside, letting him in. The room seemed brighter when he entered, though the sun was still the same. They sat at the table together. Mary poured him a cup of tea. Daniel accepted it with thanks, wrapping his large hands around the small cup. For a while, they spoke about simple things: the weather, the town, and the neighbors. But soon, the conversation grew deeper. "Daniel," Mary said quietly, looking into her tea. "Do you ever feel alone? Even when people are around you?" Daniel paused, then nodded. "Yes. Many times. People see my hands, my work, but not always my heart. Sometimes, it feels like no one really notices the person behind it all." Mary's chest tightened. She understood that feeling too well. "That is how I felt for years," she admitted. "After my husband passed, I kept going, but I often felt like I was invisible. Like I had become just another old face in the crowd." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes steady and kind. "You're not invisible, Mary. I see you. You are strong, thoughtful, and more alive than you know." Her eyes glistened, and she quickly wiped them with her sleeve. "Thank you, Daniel. That means more to me than I can say." Silence followed, but it wasn't heavy. It was soft, filled with an unspoken understanding. Then Daniel stood up. "I should get to work soon. But before I go," he hesitated, searching her face. "Would you like me to come by later, maybe help with your garden? It looks like it could use a little care." Mary's lips curved into a smile. "I would like that very much." That afternoon, Daniel returned. He wore work gloves and carried a small spade. Together, they stepped outside into Mary's backyard. The garden had once been full of life, but now it was overgrown with weeds. Daniel bent down and began pulling at the roots. Mary, though slower, joined him, kneeling beside him. The two worked side by side, their hands busy, their hearts quiet but warm. As they worked, Daniel told her stories from his younger years, how he had learned to fix things, how he had moved from place to place, always helping people. Mary listened, sometimes laughing, sometimes nodding with understanding. She told him about her youth, about the dreams she once had, and about the joy of raising her children before life grew quiet again. Hours passed, but neither noticed. By evening, the garden looked alive again. Rows of flowers could breathe, and the soil looked fresh. Mary stood, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I haven't felt this alive in years," she said softly. Daniel looked at her, his eyes shining in the fading light. "That's because you still are alive, Mary. You still have so much to give, so much to feel." She felt her chest grow warm again, as if his words planted seeds deeper than any flower in the soil. That evening, they sat on the porch. The garden stretched before them, glowing in the orange light of sunset. Birds chirped, and the world felt calm. Mary turned her head and studied Daniel's face. There was kindness, but also something strong in him. He was a man who carried quiet strength, yet his gentleness made it shine brighter. "Daniel," she said softly, "you've brought light back into my home, but also into my heart. I don't know how to thank you." Daniel looked at her and gave a small smile. "You already have. Every word you've spoken, every smile you've given, it is more than thanks. It reminds me why I do what I do." The evening settled, and neither moved for a long time. Later that night, Mary sat by her window. She thought about Daniel and the garden. She thought about how quickly life could surprise someone, even when they believed surprises were long gone. Her hand touched the glass as she whispered to herself, "He sees me. He really sees me." And somewhere in the quiet of the night, she realized that tomorrow no longer looked empty. Tomorrow carried hope, and that hope had a name. Daniel. Evening fell across the quiet neighborhood, and the street grew calm. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange and purple. Sam finished cleaning his small toolbox, then placed it carefully in the back of his truck. He looked tired, but his heart felt steady. For days he had been around Mia's home, helping her fix small problems, first the garage light, then the door, and later the leaky sink. Each time he thought he was done, another small problem appeared. But Sam didn't mind. He told himself it was just kindness, just being helpful. Still, when he thought about it honestly, he knew there was more. He liked being near her. Mia carried a calm warmth that made him forget about his own troubles. And her laughter, it had a way of staying in his mind even after he left her house. That evening, Mia stepped outside with 2 cups of tea in her hands. She wore a simple sweater, and her hair was tied back loosely. "You've worked enough today," she said with a small smile. "Come sit for a while. At least drink something warm before you go." Sam hesitated, but then nodded. He sat down on the small wooden steps that led up to her porch. Mia joined him, handing him the tea. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. They just listened to the quiet sounds of the evening crickets, leaves rustling, and a dog barking faintly in the distance. Finally, Mia broke the silence. "You know," she said softly, "I used to feel alone in this house. Everything broke at once, and I thought no one would care enough to help. Then you showed up." Sam stared into his cup. "I was just passing by when you needed a hand. That's all." Mia shook her head. "No. That's not all. Plenty of people pass by. Not everyone stops." Her words sat heavy in the air. Sam didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to being thanked for small things. He was just a man who fixed what needed fixing. But hearing her voice, gentle and sure, made him realize how much it mattered to her. "Maybe," Sam said finally, "maybe I stopped because I know what it feels like when no one comes." Mia turned to look at him, her eyes calm but curious. "And did anyone ever come for you?" Sam let out a slow breath. Memories flashed in his mind, hard days when he worked long hours, nights when he thought he was invisible to the world. But he shook his head slightly. "Not often," he said. "But it taught me something. If I can be there for someone else, then at least I've done one thing right." Mia didn't answer right away. Instead, she rested her cup on the step beside her and folded her hands. The porch light above them flickered, the same light Sam had fixed days ago, now shining steady. She smiled at it. "Then you've done more than one thing right," she said gently. For a while they sat there, the air growing cooler. Sam felt a weight lift from his chest, though he didn't know why. He wasn't looking for praise. But Mia's words gave him a kind of peace, like he had been seen, really seen, for the first time in a long while. After finishing his tea, Sam stood up. "I should be going," he said, though a part of him didn't want to. Mia rose too. "All right. But before you go," she stepped closer, her voice quieter now. "Sam, you've been more than just a helper. You've been a friend." Sam met her eyes. They held something warm, something honest. "And you've been kind to me too," he said. There was a pause, a silence that stretched between them, filled with unspoken thoughts. Sam felt a strange courage stir in him, something rare. He didn't say anything else, he simply gave her a small nod, one that carried meaning. Mia seemed to understand, because her smile deepened, soft and genuine. As Sam walked back to his truck, Mia watched him go. She didn't feel alone anymore. She felt lighter, as if someone had reminded her that life still had simple joys, moments of connection, honesty, and quiet care. Sam drove home under the dim streetlights, his thoughts steady. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he would not forget the woman on the porch who had called him a friend. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something more. Evening fell across the quiet neighborhood, and the street grew calm. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange and purple. Sam finished cleaning his small toolbox, then placed it carefully in the back of his truck. He looked tired, but his heart felt steady. For days he had been around Mia's home, helping her fix small problems, first the garage light, then the door, and later the leaky sink. Each time he thought he was done, another small problem appeared. But Sam didn't mind. He told himself it was just kindness, just being helpful. Still, when he thought about it honestly, he knew there was more. He liked being near her. Mia carried a calm warmth that made him forget about his own troubles. And her laughter, it had a way of staying in his mind even after he left her house. That evening, Mia stepped outside with 2 cups of tea in her hands. She wore a simple sweater, and her hair was tied back loosely. "You've worked enough today," she said with a small smile. "Come sit for a while. At least drink something warm before you go." Sam hesitated, but then nodded. He sat down on the small wooden steps that led up to her porch. Mia joined him, handing him the tea. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. They just listened to the quiet sounds of the evening crickets, leaves rustling, and a dog barking faintly in the distance. Finally, Mia broke the silence. "You know," she said softly, "I used to feel alone in this house. Everything broke at once, and I thought no one would care enough to help. Then you showed up." Sam stared into his cup. "I was just passing by when you needed a hand. That's all." Mia shook her head. "No. That's not all. Plenty of people pass by. Not everyone stops." Her words sat heavy in the air. Sam didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to being thanked for small things. He was just a man who fixed what needed fixing. But hearing her voice, gentle and sure, made him realize how much it mattered to her. "Maybe," Sam said finally, "maybe I stopped because I know what it feels like when no one comes." Mia turned to look at him, her eyes calm but curious. "And did anyone ever come for you?" Sam let out a slow breath. Memories flashed in his mind, hard days when he worked long hours, nights when he thought he was invisible to the world. But he shook his head slightly. "Not often," he said. "But it taught me something. If I can be there for someone else, then at least I've done one thing right." Mia didn't answer right away. Instead, she rested her cup on the step beside her and folded her hands. The porch light above them flickered, the same light Sam had fixed days ago, now shining steady. She smiled at it. "Then you've done more than one thing right," she said gently. For a while they sat there, the air growing cooler. Sam felt a weight lift from his chest, though he didn't know why. He wasn't looking for praise. But Mia's words gave him a kind of peace, like he had been seen, really seen, for the first time in a long while. After finishing his tea, Sam stood up. "I should be going," he said, though a part of him didn't want to. Mia rose too. "All right. But before you go," she stepped closer, her voice quieter now. "Sam, you've been more than just a helper. You've been a friend." Sam met her eyes. They held something warm, something honest. "And you've been kind to me too," he said. There was a pause, a silence that stretched between them, filled with unspoken thoughts. Sam felt a strange courage stir in him, something rare. He didn't say anything else, he simply gave her a small nod, one that carried meaning. Mia seemed to understand, because her smile deepened, soft and genuine. As Sam walked back to his truck, Mia watched him go. She didn't feel alone anymore. She felt lighter, as if someone had reminded her that life still had simple joys, moments of connection, honesty, and quiet care. Sam drove home under the dim streetlights, his thoughts steady. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he would not forget the woman on the porch who had called him a friend. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something more. The next morning, Myra woke up to the soft glow of sunlight filtering through her curtains. For the first time in weeks, she felt calm. The strange events with the garage light and the unusual visitors in the sky had faded for the moment, replaced by something warmer: hope. She moved quietly through her home, making herself a cup of tea. Outside, the air was crisp, and the garden Daniel had helped her tend looked alive and fresh. Tiny flowers peeked through the soil, their colors bright against the green. Myra smiled. Life, she realized, could return to its gentle rhythm even after chaos. The sound of a knock at the door startled her. She set down her cup and opened it to find Daniel standing there, carrying a small basket. "Good morning," he said with a soft smile. "I thought you might like some fresh bread. It's from the bakery a few streets over." Myra laughed softly. "You're spoiling me, Daniel. I don't even know what to say." "Then just let me leave it here," he said with a wink. "But, maybe you could join me for a walk later? The air is nice this morning." Myra hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that." They walked together down the quiet street, the neighborhood still calm. Birds sang faintly, and a soft breeze rustled the trees. For a while, they didn't speak, simply enjoying the moment. It was peaceful, the kind of peace Myra had forgotten existed. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I've been thinking," he said carefully, "about the other night, about the lights, the visitors, and your garage light. We handled the immediate danger, but there's more out there. I don't want you to be caught off guard again." Myra nodded. "I trust you, Daniel. You've shown me that humans can be clever, strong, and brave. I believe we can face anything together." Daniel smiled, a warmth spreading across his face. "It's not just cleverness. It's the heart. Humans have a heart that surprises even me sometimes. That is what makes us strong." Myra's heart thumped softly. She had never realized how much she admired Daniel, how much his presence had become a part of her life. I'm glad you're here," she admitted softly. Daniel stopped walking and looked at her. His expression was serious but gentle. "I'm glad I'm here too." The moment lingered, unspoken but understood. The bond between them was growing quietly, like the garden they had nurtured together. It was simple, yet it carried a power all its own. The next few days were calm. Daniel helped Myra with small repairs, and they spent quiet evenings talking, laughing, and sharing stories. Life returned to a gentle rhythm, but both of them knew that the world beyond their neighborhood was still vast and unpredictable. One afternoon, as they were planting flowers along the edge of the garden, Myra paused and looked at Daniel. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like, if everything were ordinary? No strange lights, no danger, no worry." Daniel wiped his hands on a cloth and smiled. "I've imagined it. But then I think, the ordinary is still beautiful when shared with someone who matters. Maybe danger isn't everything. Maybe courage is shown in simple moments like this, helping a garden grow, sharing a quiet afternoon." Myra felt her chest warm. "I like that thought," she said. Daniel looked at her, a soft seriousness in his eyes. "And I like that you understand it. That's rare." Evening came, painting the sky with soft pink and purple shades. Myra and Daniel sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The garden glowed softly in the last light of day. Myra turned to him. "You know, Daniel, you've changed my life in ways I didn't expect. I used to feel small, unnoticed. But you made me see that even in ordinary life, moments can be extraordinary." Daniel reached over and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And you've changed mine too," he said quietly. "Sometimes I think I came here just to fix a light, but I stayed because I found something worth caring for. Someone worth seeing." Myra's eyes softened. She felt her heart lift, a quiet joy filling her chest. "I'm glad you stayed," she whispered. Daniel nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Me too." For a long moment, they sat in silence, letting the soft sounds of the evening wrap around them. The air was warm, the sky calm, and for once, the world beyond their neighborhood didn't feel threatening. Later that night, Myra stood by the window, looking at the stars. She thought about the strange lights in the sky, the visitors, and the mystery of the garage light. But she also thought about Daniel, his steady strength, his kind words, and the way he had made her feel alive again. The world beyond might still hold unknown dangers, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel afraid. She felt ready. A soft knock at the door made her turn. Daniel stood there, smiling warmly. "I thought I'd check in before tomorrow," he said. "Maybe take a walk under the stars." Myra smiled, her heart lifting. "I'd like that very much." They walked side by side under the quiet night sky. The air was calm, the stars above twinkling softly. For a moment, the world felt simple again, as if the chaos of the past days had never happened. But deep down, Myra knew that whatever the future held, strangers in the sky, mysteries and challenges, she would not face it alone. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever comes," he said, "we'll face it together." Myra looked up at him, feeling warmth and certainty fill her chest. "Together," she agreed. The night wrapped around them, quiet and peaceful, carrying a promise of new beginnings. The world could still be mysterious and full of surprises, but together, they could face anything. As they walked, the garage light flickered once, softly, like a quiet heartbeat. Myra smiled. It wasn't just a light anymore, it was a reminder of courage, hope, and the start of something wonderful. And in that calm moment, with the stars above and the garden behind them, Myra and Daniel began a new chapter, a life full of trust, friendship, and a quiet, growing love.